Good morning, listener. Welcome to Electoral Reform Hour on the network service of Radio Nigeria. We're excited to have you with us today. In our last edition, we had an engaging conversation with Awal Musa Rasanjani, the Executive Director of CISLAC, where we discussed strengthening electoral accountability in Nigeria. During that session, we examined the vital role of holding electoral bodies and political leaders accountable to protect the integrity of our elections. Today, we continue this important discussion with a focus on electoral accountability, exploring how transparency and oversight can be enhanced within our electoral process. My name is Ezenwanwago, your anchor. Electoral Reform Hour is a program aimed to foster inclusive dialogue among citizens from varied backgrounds concerning electoral reforms and constitutional amendments, enhance public understanding and awareness regarding electoral reforms, and possibly compile and present citizen-derived recommendations to the National Assembly and INEC for consideration. This program is brought to you by Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, PACA, with support from MacArthur Foundation. Electoral accountability is a cornerstone of any democratic society, ensuring that elections are free, fair, and reflective of the people's will. In Nigeria, the challenge lies in addressing the systemic flaws and that consistently undermine this accountability. Issues such as unregulated campaign finances, electoral offenses going unpunished, and limited citizen engagement beyond voting day continue to erode confidence in the electoral process. Political parties often lack internal democracy, with opaque primary processes and an environment that discourages youth participation. Additionally, misinformation during election periods further complicates efforts to maintain transparency. Civil society organizations, while vocal, face institutional bottlenecks that limit their ability to drive change. As these challenges persist, the question remains: how can Nigeria ensure a more accountable electoral system moving forward? Today on Electoral Reform Hour, we are joined, and I'm excited to have Hamzat Lawal, an anti-corruption activist and founder of Follow the Money, a social accountability initiative. Hamzat is also the chief executive of Connected Development Code, a non-governmental organization empowering marginalized communities across Africa. Hamzat will help us to explore these critical issues and discuss potential pathways for reform. Hamzat, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the program.
Well, thank you for having me. It's great to be on your program.
It's very easy to pigeonhole you into Follow the Money, but I know that you've also been doing extensive work around elections and electoral reform issues. Elections are riddled with structural flaws, consistently that undermine electoral accountability. So nobody fits the bill this morning than somebody who has followed the money, who is following the money, and looking at how we can address, especially those of us in civil society, can address these systemic issues despite some of these institutional challenges. What are those big structural flaws that you think inhibit electoral accountability?
I think for me, the biggest elephant in the room is interference by the political class or the political elite or members of political party who wants things their way. And I think that if we continue this way, then people would want to continue to muzzle the system, the process, and even undermine INEC integrity processes that seeks to deliver credible, free, and fair elections. So for me, it's that interference. And we've seen this play out, in successive elections. Even the last election, even when we observe local government elections. We've always seen that interference by political class who are desperate to seek power, who are desperate to grab power for their own personal and selfish gain. So that's a big elephant in the room.
Yeah, I what excites me about the work that you do is that just like we know that citizen engagement in elections virtually stops at E-Day, on election day, voting day, but you stretch the work to governance, to post-election, issues. How do we begin to have a sustained engagement of citizens, especially what I like you calling big elephant, the electoral offenses. People commit crimes during election, and it does seem that nothing happens.
I think it has to do with our value system, and because you see, society always observe, and they observe what will become actions or inaction, what would happen, what are those consequences. And you see, my brother is saying, well, over time, there are no consequences. People before elections would mobilize thugs, would intimidate their opponent, would even attack campaign rallies. Nothing happens. Society have seen that in some cases, you'll see law enforcement on one side, you'll see political thugs on the other side. And in some way, they give themselves signal when to act, when not to act, when to move, when not to move. We've even seen, and this is me saying I've even witnessed, where you see a political office holder's entourage, and on the sideline there are thugs protecting that political office holder. And I remember one time I was interacting with a journalist on the field, and I said, is that not thugs on that sideline? So yes, this person would not move without his thug. And I was like, what? And this is something society is observing. So it's becoming a norm. It is now becoming a norm that we now accept what is wrong. And for people who have integrity, who have values, who have principles, and who stand their ground, society is now seeing them like they're the ones that something is wrong with. Now, let me tell you practically, when you see a candidate's budget, because I've been privileged to see a candidate's budget, a lot of money, they will say logistics.
Yeah.
But when you deep dive into that budget, there's money for talks, there's money for Igbo. So there's money since already. There's money for substance.
Yes.
Yes. And there's even money to buy weapons.
Yeah. Because
and that's why there's
they call it granules.
Yeah, well, that's why there's proliferation of small and light weapons in society today. So, my brother is saying why society has now accepted what we're not supposed to accept.
So, Hamza, one of my teachers called what you have done problematizing. So, and this program is a solution program. What do you think needs to happen to be able to kick society back to that point where not just kick, and even duty bearers to begin to think in terms of consequence management?
I think we need a society that is conscious, not or just aware. You see, a lot of time we say we need to sensitize, but we need political sensitization. You see, a lot of people will say they are aware, they are informed, but they're not politically aware. They're not politically informed. Everything starts and ends with politics. And that's the simple truth. And I think we need to start accepting it. And it is okay. Today, if you follow what's happening in America, everyone is taking a position. But you see, in Nigeria, if you take a position, then they would either tag you or box you in one corner and say, oh, you're for them, you're against us, you're for us. But in America, they separate politics from their business because they understand that politics decide and define everything. I think we need to get to a point where we all become politically conscious and aware, where we can work together and have different political view. And it's okay. And that's the beauty of democracy. So for me, I think we need a mass education, mass mobilization of citizenry that are politically conscious, politically aware, and they can align themselves to different political ideology. And it's acceptable. It is fine by society. We can always disagree to agree. We can always debate. And let's allow ideas that shows that this would bring about solutions to the generality of society, and then maybe we can roll back on all of this. But listen, what society must, as if we want to roll back, we must be politically conscious, we must be politically aware and informed, and we must politically engage.
So there are conversations about Electoral Offences Commission.
I'm not for it.
No, that's why I brought you here.
I am not for.
So let me get. Everybody thinks that to solve issues around electoral accountability, you need to manage how people behave, and there are people who have put on the table that the solution to that is Electoral Offences Commission. There are people who, and it's in the National Assembly, and colleagues in civil society are also very energized around it. So I'd like to know what Hamzat thinks about that.
See, what is the role of the Nigerian police, which is the apex law enforcement agency? And I see people have argued that when they create this Electoral Offences Commission, they will draw personnel from different anti-corruption agency, law enforcement agency, and then they will all work together. Why can't we empower existing institutions? Let me give you an example. Have you been to a police station? You see, me as a community leader, I used to go to police station. Any area I stay, I go and report and say, I've moved to this area and I want you to know I'm your neighbor, so that if there is any cause for alarm, I can call you and you know who is calling you. I want to also know what are the issues, what are the problems, what is the challenge of the police station. Now, if you sit with the divisional police officer, the DPO, or you sit with various IPOs, which are in the police station.
Yeah.
Some of them, if they want to open up and be honest with you, they will tell you that every month the allocation to this police station is 20,000 or 30,000 naira. And this is a police station that handle different kind of cases, either domestic,
criminal.
You understand?
Yeah.
Now, and see, society, let's not lie to ourselves. If you go to police station and you want to write a statement, sometimes they'll tell you, oh, there's no paper. So you that you're coming to report an offense, you have to mobilize for them to get paper. Now you've written.
But sometimes people think they're lying.
No, is this the truth? So
no, I'm just saying.
But it's the truth. So now, I started from how much is each police station allocation.
Yeah.
Now they have a police patrol vehicle. Now, how much? And you expect this patrol vehicle must patrol every night in their vicinity.
Yes.
Then they must have printer, computer. They must have papers in this with 30,000 naira every month. If you look at the police budget, every subsidy year is maybe 50% that is disbursed to them out of the 100% allocation. Over 25 to 30% is being spent in Louis Edet House. Then they share the remaining to the 36 states and the FCT. Let's tell ourselves the truth. If you want police, who is the apex law enforcement agency, who has the constitutional powers to do intelligence, to work on anti-corruption, to work on
to enforce all laws,
everything.
Enforce all laws. That's what.
Police can do work of immigration.
That's what the Police Act says. Actually.
So why can't we empower them to undertake the role of enforcing electoral offences rather than creating new? So now, if you create a new institution, now what you're doing is you're creating food for the boys, whereby it's about now. Okay, all these people come together, they catch you as a political thug or political machinery for some big politician who has money. It's just for him to bring more money and share for the boys, and
but Hamza, the limit of policing is to the extent that it investigates and then prosecutes. So at the end of the day, once it leaves the police station, it gets into another territory, and that territory is the judiciary.
Yeah, but
and just hold on, and the challenges, the huge challenges that the judiciary is currently imperiled with. So why a lot of people are making this argument is so that you can have, rather than just say special courts, they are saying, can we have something because of the enormity of the challenge? And I think that's the thinking that got President Obasanjo to throw in ICPC and
EFCC,
and the rest.
that they are now suing.
and there are issues around all of that. So, but I just wanted you to expand your thinking. If you are opposed to the setting up of another agency, and in some sense I agree with you broadly, but what then needs to happen to be able to deal with the increased misbehavior of the political class?
Isn't one. So people have argued that the special court or whatever it is, but it's judicial arm. But mind you, are you saying because people are not comfortable with the judiciary, let us sideline them, or let us isolate them and create something that we can then use? Now, in law, they would say you have to test it. And if you don't test and interrogate it, and mind you, our democracy is still evolving. Our uninterrupted Fourth Republic is still evolving. So if we don't engage in that judicial process, and mind you also, yes, the police would investigate and then gather their evidence and go to court. If you empower them very well, you won't have to dwell so much in court cases. Rather, once the evidence are clear and the investigations are clear and there is no manipulation or no interference, then you get your judgment. Again, we want to create a special court. Is it not the same judges that are in all of these other courts, be it,
administrative courts?
They're still the same people you're bringing together. You say you want to cut time. You want to ensure justice is done immediately. But then what are you trying to do? You're also trying to isolate or box the judicial process itself that is supposed to deal with criminal cases and criminal offenses and even judicial or electoral offenses. So I think rather than creating all of this, let us strengthen existing institutions. Let us empower them. So when I say strengthen, I'm also talking about give them the needed resources. Give them the needed manpower. Give them the needed capacity enhancement. And let us integrate technology into all of this. You would not see other countries say they want to. Why do we like creating new institution, either commission, either, why do we always want to create something new? Why? And see, if you look at all of this, the end game is always centered around money. Rather than deal with the root cause, we want to create something new and through budget. You understand? So why? So for me, no, let's not create any new institution. In short, all you have to do is empower police, empower the judiciary, but most importantly also the Ministry of Justice and the Attorney General of the Federation Office. Empower them in a way that police can take this case file to them and they can go to court, bring charges, and ensure that justice is done, if we can get it right. I don't want us to create institutions and then you have friends of political elites, all the strong men and powerful and rich men, you put their friends there and then they still continue to have their ways.
Absolutely, Hamza. Sometimes we want to solve a problem and create another one, and which is what you are hitting at very strongly. Code is very strong and big on technology, and I see the work that you do around that. But one of the big issues confronting elections is misinformation, disinformation, and there is not much effort for those who know. I think that even those who know feel criminalized. That's the sense that I get, to speak out on the level of misinformation. And when we were considering your coming, this was the point that I was. Why is Code not using his arsenals as that I know you have as effectively as should be used to deal with electoral, especially misinformation on elections? We've
done some work around misinformation, disinformation, fake news, and countering it. It's a dynamism in it. So you see, when misinformation is put out there or disinformation, it's targeted. But you say, when you want to counter it, there are no algorithm, there are no tools to counter it and target it. So for instance, now you see the Edo election, there was fake news just few hours for polls to open that some candidate has either stepped down or endorsed his opponent. But when the person wants to counter it, the people. So the thing about news is just weird. the people that hear the news does not mean when the actual news comes out, they'll hear it. Maybe they're either distracted or they've taken it and they've moved on. And so we've worked with a few newsrooms to counter misinformation and disinformation. We've done fact checking. But also isn't what is cancel culture. You see, the digital space is a warfare. There are already people who their opinion, no matter what happened, their opinion has already been shaped and they've taken a stand. Even if it's a misinformation or disinformation. And they know, they'll still push it. And then they'll push it and put a question mark. You see, the law on misinformation is not clear. And you see, as civil society, we have to be careful so that as much as we're trying to come up with solution, we don't stiffen people's voices and give law enforcement an opportunity to clamp down on opposition voices. So there's that cancel culture in the digital space. There's also the headsman culture. It's complicated, and now with Gen Z, with millennia, with political influencer, it's a warfare whereby I think we need to do studies and research on how to counter it, how to not control, because again, you have to be careful.
Control has to be it has to be nuanced.
So even within our arsenals, people take positions. So because we've embraced democracy, you can't force and you can't muzzle people to do something a certain way. You must have conversation, you must have debate. Interestingly, before the elections, even within us as a group, we had a debate around, okay, what is your choice of candidate? Why this? Yes, we're an observer, we're neutral. But even people within your system has a preferred candidate. And because of their choices, you can't say, you alienate them or you... No. And this thing causes serious tear within even the platform. Because you see people bring out their political leanings, their
inclinations, and mask it.
Exactly. And then you see people that are cool in 1 minute, they're having debates that is even getting so heated that they're becoming confrontational. So this is just the current reality. Sadly, I think we need to get to a point where Nigeria must see this as a revenue generating entity. What do I mean? Now, who holds the big tech companies accountable? Because without WhatsApp, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, without this platform, disinformation and misinformation does not get spread. Because if you look at the word of mouth to spread misinformation takes longer hours. But you see, with one TikTok video, with one Facebook post or Twitter post, it goes more viral. So who holds them responsible? I know, yes, we've had conversation on WhatsApp and Facebook, where we're now one of their trusted, what they call their trusted sources, where we can flag any post on Facebook and quickly, this machine brings it down. And, we're part of the group that informed WhatsApp policy that reduced the number of forwarding message. Because before now, you can forward to every of your contact, but now, there's limits. And this is some of the progress we've made in engaging the big tech companies. But how do we hold them? In Europe today, Facebook have paid fine more than 2 billion euros. In America, Twitter, all of them, they're being fined with allowing their platform to be used to undermine, because misinformation, disinformation is undermining democracy. It's undermining democratic process and even democratic institutions. So if Nigeria cannot find this company, put sanctions on them, then they would allow this platform to continue. And mind you, this platform, the more people engage, they're making revenue. So Nigeria must also sanction them and make sure they pay heavy sanctions so that they would also ensure that they are accountable, because you're the one that have created and have given this platform to people to use who are Nigerians. So you must also ensure that democratically you monitor and ensure they use it for the right way.
Yeah, in the service of good.
Yes, because you're complicit to whatever happens within the platform that you've created.
You're absolutely right. But you see, one of the most thriving industries in Nigeria is rumor. You were in Edo and you heard that one of the INEC offices have been attacked and blah, and then you get to the place and there was no such thing and people are looking at you, and it was agog in the media. And the consequence of that for elections is huge, because of what elections represent, its complexity, its dynamism, its emotionalism, if you like. So I picked out holding the big techs accountable and see how we can also use that as a revenue. But what about this? What do we need to do with the citizens?
I think we need to make citizens more aware of the consequences of their action, and maybe we need to find a way to know where is this source or this primary source, because you see, most time when these things happen, you're able to detect who is the primary source. Who is that first person that have taken up this rumor or this misinformation and fake news? And I think if we're able to get this primary source and law enforcement is able to make an example of this person, then maybe people will now rethink that before you share something, you should always verify. And you see, this has also consumed newsroom organization, where you see even national television, some media houses would have carried fake news before they realize.
Yes, because they now rely on social media.
Exactly. So I think is to know how these primary sources, who are these primary sources? Because it's not machine, it's human being that will sit down in a room and, either the influencers concoct something and just put, in Edo, we were in Edo. Yes. People outside Edo is calling us that Edo is of how is not this in Edo that was secure and safe. So I think we need to find, and law enforcement needs to find the primary sources and prosecute them. Take them to the law.
So when you say prosecution, because we are going to be going on a stretch of break now, when you say prosecute, for me, I just laugh at times, and it's worrying for me, because even for security agents to do their work has become problematic. If Eze is arrested, the first thing is that everybody goes out and says free breach of his. Nobody is going to say, what did he do? Did he commit? Because I have, for instance, there's a radio station that was cracked on, by security agents somewhere in the southeast, and everybody was like, "Oh, back to dictatorship!" Wow. And then the people who arrested them came and said, "Guys who are in this thing are involved in XYZ." How do we begin to separate that? Just before we go on break, few minutes.
So there is lack of trust, and that's why people don't trust that law enforcement will do their job diligently. This lack of trust within society and within the system and various institutions. And I think this is where law enforcement needs to be proactive. And that's why FOI, there's a part of FOI that talks about proactive disclosure. When you're making this kind of arrest or you're making this kind of investigation, you should tell the public and say, this is why we're doing it. This is the offenses these people have committed, and this is stipulated in the act that they have contravened, and this is what we are going to do as we investigate this case. And I think if we can rebuild back public trust and gain public confidence, I think the Nigerian people will support what would help strengthen and deepen our democracy.
It is still Electoral Reform Hour. You can be part of the live program by sharing your comments via social media platform on X at packer.ng and hashtag Electoral Reform Hour. You can also leave your questions and comments for us on Facebook via at Packer, and our WhatsApp number is 0816803 The phone lines will be opened as soon as we return from break. Don't go anywhere.
Stay tuned to Electoral Reform Hour on the network service of Radio Nigeria. We'll be back shortly.
Are you ready for change? Join the Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, PACA, for the Electoral Reform Hour. This program amplifies electoral reform campaigns and provides citizens with opportunity to make meaningful contributions that will strengthen our electoral process.
I think what we should do and what we've been advocating for is to find a way to harmonize all the biometrics we have been doing in the country so that we have one. If you have your NIMSI card, for instance, you should be able to carry all the data, social security, like it's done everywhere. So when you vote, everything about it is there.
My position is that the result, substantive, the election ends at the polling unit. Once the presiding officer, in the presence of polling agents, in the presence of security men, in the presence of all other stakeholders, including some of the people that voted, counted the scores of candidates and parties openly, entered the results into Form EC8A, and snapped it, that is the real result. And it is that goes into IREF.
Let's embark on the path to significant transformation and well-informed decision-making together. As the National Assembly, INEC and other stakeholders work towards improving our electoral process, you too can be part of the decision-making process by participating in the radio program.
We are on to Comrade Abdullah Mohammed. I'm calling for Bida Local Government Area Council of Niger State. I'm advocating to federal government or the member constituted to look into this electoral reform. That why should a member be in the house to speak the truth? At the end of the day, what we continue receiving or hearing is to suspend that member and to tell him to join any political party of his choice. Who then are we expecting to come and tell us the truth?
This is Brian Orator from Latte IG State. My idea is that INEC should stand firmly as an independent body. Secondly, the local government election should be conducted from the INEC, start from the national level.
Remember, democracy is for the people. Together, we can make a difference. Let your voice be heard in the Electoral Reform Hour, where every opinion matters. PACA, making democracy work for the people.
Thanks for staying tuned. We are back with your favorite program, Electoral Reform Hour, on the network service of Radio Nigeria.
Welcome back to Electoral Reform Hour on the network service of Radio Nigeria. Before the break, we were in very exciting, robust conversation with Hamzat Lawal on electoral accountability. Hamza, picking up from where we left it, you were in the strategy committee of the Not Too Young to Run movement. In fact, you were in the leadership, as it were. And then we did say we were going to also talk about youth participation in this. What are those reforms that you think needs to happen to expand the democratic space for the young people and vulnerable groups?
I think we need to take away money from politics, and I see isn't why it's going to be hard, because sadly our politics has been monetized or monetarized or dollarized in some cases. Yes, like you said, the Not Too Young to Run movement succeeded in advocating for the age reduction bill to be passed, adopted by over 2/3 majority of the State Assembly and signed by President Buhari, which was really exciting. And we've seen a lot of younger people in the House of Rep and also at State Assembly. But you see, because of the involvement of money. So the last election, if you want to run for House of Rep, you need to buy from political party. Expression of interest form and party nomination form was about 10 million naira, 11 million.
For the local government in some states.
So now, exactly. So now, I wanted to say, that was 2023 election. So now, these local governments, some parties are 10 million, some 20 million. So how do you expect?
Hold on your thoughts. Let's open the line now for some conversation. You can join our conversation by calling 09150 910 482, 09150 0910 483. I'll do that again. 0915 0910 482, 0915 0910 483. You can be part of this conversation. We have Hamzat Lawal, the CEO of Code, and he's taking us through electoral accountability. You can join us. The program is for you. We expect your calls. Hamzat, you can continue to share your thoughts.
So, until we're able to remove money and listen to ideas and people who wants to truly come and serve, because politics itself is about coming to serve humanity and serving your community or your constituents. And if we're not able to remove money, how do you expect a young person who has the idea, has the vision to engage? But he says, and well, let's also tell ourselves the truth. A lot of young people have a mentality that, it is supposed to be their turn or their right. Entitlement. So, and in politics, it's survival of the fittest, and that's sadly the reality. I've observed ward meetings. I've observed local government meetings. I've observed state meetings in Congress. I've observed Congress at the national, because the presidential primaries I was given accreditation to observe. Listen, at this world level, you hardly find young people. The people that community call youth, when you go to community, some of them are 40, 50, 60-year-olds. They say youth. Even the youth leaders in community, some of them are 45, 50, 55 years, and they say they are youth leader, and they believe that, they're waiting and they're working for their own turn or their time. Yes, it's understandable that mobilely upward young people are in cities. They've gone to universities. They want to get a job. They want to get a better lifestyle. But how are they connected to their ward? Because you see, in politics, you start from your ward, you migrate to local government, because decisions are made from the ward level. If you even look at what happened to some of these big parties' chairmen, they suspend them from their ward before the national council.
It happened to Comrade Adam.
Exactly. So you see, the ward level, it starts from the ward. How many young people are members of their political parties in the ward level? Are they registered? Do they go for ward meetings? If they don't go, do they contribute? Do they send money if it's 5,000? Because when you go for ward meetings, they share pure water. Sometimes they share kuli, they share zobu. Are you paying for that? Because if you are not able to attend, but you're sending money, you're a stakeholder. You must be recognized when they want to take critical decision. They will call you and say, because you are sending money for them to hold this meeting. Because in politics, everybody have their role. There are people, their role is to just be moving from one house to the other in the ward. Some people, their role is to keep the register. Some people is to find money. Some people is to influence their political leaders within that local level. Now, when they finish ward meeting, the local government, so every ward now moves to the local government secretariat. Are you engaging again? Then they move to the state. Then before they decide and come to the National Congress. In this value chain, you hardly find young people. They're just entitled, and they say,
I hear you loud and clear. Stakeholdership. What's your stakeholdership apart from money? But you also need money for elections.
Oh, you do.
I think,
to be fair, you need money. You need money because there's logistics, there's campaign. You have to do posters. You have to do ads. You have to do ads on radio.
So it has something to do more with what you talked about, the legitimacy question. How are you able to? Because you may not necessarily have the money, sometimes we talk about godfatherism and stuff. But today now there is what you call crowdsourcing,
crowdfunding,
and all of that.
Yeah.
If you have integrity as a young person, you are able also to.
Oh yes. So you see, interestingly, and I like that you brought the godfatherism and good. If you're someone that wants to lead and you can't convince people to donate to you, then how would you convince them to support whatever agenda you're bringing to serve them? Now, listen, as I grow older, I'm beginning to now put godfatherism side by side mentorship. Because if you look at it, mentors would guide you, would shape you, and they won't interfere with your thought process. They would instill values on you. But political godfatherism wants to control. Maybe we need to have...
I think we have to call negative, because negative political godfatherism, because we have to qualify it.
I think godfatherism should not be a bad thing.
No, it necessarily should not be.
Because if you look at American politics, Obama is still Biden's godfather, even if Biden is older than Obama.
Absolutely.
But he's the pipeline or the conduit that have brought him to national politics and became the president. I think that we need more godfathers that act like mentors rather than people who wants to control, consume, and take the national cake, as it were.
Do you consider mercantilism, that this thing for, is a hedge thing? I come and say, Hamza, I want to fund you. When you get there, you have to make returns to me. If you accept that, that's no longer godfatherism. No. You are in business.
That's transactional.
That's what I'm saying, and that's what people sometimes refer to as godfatherism. But there are people who promote certain values and ideas, and they can find young people or even younger, elder people who they want to push those ideas through. And I think we should be able to encourage that. I thank you for that insight that you have brought into this place. It's still Electoral Reform Hour on Radio Nigeria. You can call in if you are able to. I don't know if there are challenges, but the number is still 091 50 091 50 482 091 50 483. If we're able to get, but you can also leave your questions and comments for us on our WhatsApp number 0816 8083424 and on X at packer.ng and Facebook at packer. Hamza, let's get to the political parties, and I'm very unapologetic about what I think about their role in elections. And internal party democracy within these parties is critical to electoral accountability. How can Nigerian political parties be reformed to enforce internal? Hamza, over 80% of the court cases that you have for elections are actually internal party issues, and most times they are mistaken for conduct of elections, because people can't separate the two. They just say we have 7,000 court cases, we have 1 million court cases, and we're litigious people. How are we leaving them alone? Is there something? Are we over-respecting the political parties?
I think that the reform must actually start from political party. If we're able to reform political party, there will be less pressure on even INEC and the aftermath of every elections. I think the first mistake is, why would we? And now we need to also tell ourselves the truth. Every political party is formed to seize power. They are not formed to do anything else. They are formed to go into an election and win. Now, why is it that we have political parties, we have internal structures within the party, but everybody wants to take over the structure? What do I mean? If you look after elections, whoever emerge as the flag bearer, because we don't have independent candidacy, so you go through the platform, and that's why on your ballot paper you only see party logos and their name. You don't see candidates, so you're voting for the party. And these winners emerge and they're sworn into office. They're now called the political leader of the party. No, that is wrong. You must separate the leadership of government and the leadership of party, because the party is supposed to hold the person in government to account, because it is their platform that they've used.
That's why some people oppose independent candidacy, because they are not accountable to anybody.
Well, there's another dynamic to it, because as independent candidates, I feel you can
continue your thoughts.
Okay,
so that we don't.
So now, Ezenwa, today a lot of people say the president is the leader of his party. All the state governors will say they are the leader of their party within the state and they should control the structures. No. If the leadership of a party cannot hold the elected officials accountable, then there's a problem. And that is where the internal wrangling comes. And mind you, Ezenwa, most time when there is party crisis, it is because the so-called leader of the party has no control over the leadership, and then they poke and then cause disunity, start suspending people. Though you have factions who now wake up and declare themselves NWC members. So I think first is to agree that the kind of reform we need, and it should be clearly stated in the party constitution, that even if you emerge as a national office holder, you are still a member, and maybe by extension, because of the position you hold, yes, you can sit in party exco meetings, but you're not head of the party, or you do not control the structures within the party, because the party itself must continue to remain independent, mind you. And this is sometimes it becomes complicated. Before elections, it is the party that presents manifesto. After election, the candidate will now say, no, that manifesto is party manifesto, this is his own manifesto. Because parties are weak, so they can't even speak. Ideally, the party should sue and fight and say, no, you are representing us. Without our platform, you would not have emerged as a winner. And that is why you see, even when candidates emerge after political party primary, it is the party that forwards the name to INEC.
Don't you think we are suffering the consequence of military incursion?
I agree. See, we are suffering the aftermath of military involvement. And what do I mean? Even psychologically, everything in our country seems to be forced.
Yeah, because the first president of the country came from a military background, and after we came back to democracy in 1999, and part of what he did was to ambush those structures and became the leader of the party, which has to do with the commandist nature of the military. And those who have taken over have not been able to civilianize that process. But as civil society, we have carved a small place for ourselves, election observation. You know, on E-Day, we go there, there's visibility, we're in the media. We're not paying close attention to the fact that election is a process and not an event, and it starts even from voter registration to candidates selection and campaign. Do you think we need to restructure our narratives and our outlook to be able to capture the very essence? And I'm very excited you identified that actually is the fulcrum on which we should start this process.
See, listen, why you cannot exonerate civil society, because we're also part of society. We're just one angle of society, or one department, if you allow me to use the word. Because as civil society, we're also a part of the generality of society. Yes, even if we're supposed to be the opposite thinkers of society, because we're the ones who have the four eyes and supposed to have the interests of the people at heart. I think that maybe as civil society, we need to also reflect. Because you see, a lot of time we're always on the move. What next? We're always jumping on what next. Even sometimes we're playing projects, and we're trying to play catch up. And there's so many gaps.
That's true.
And isn't what, to be fair to us, even if when you engage Corporate Affairs Commission, I hear that between January and June, over 3,000 NGOs were registered. But within me and you, and because we're in this space, how many are prominent, how many are consistent, and how many are active? So I think that maybe we need to even just pause and reflect and agree that maybe we need to change our ways. Or maybe the younger ones, I say younger because even if you disagree with me, I'm a bit old now. Maybe the younger ones would take a cue from our gaps, our mistake, and then do better. But
no, but I don't think it's not my job to think here. It's to get your opinion. I don't think we should drop the gauntlet at this point. The work is well cut out for us.
Oh yes.
Self-imposed, really, not that anybody.
It's a calling.
It's a calling. So I am thinking that those, you see, why is code prominent? Why is code in this space? Why is it respected in this space? It's part of that energy that you bring to this. I am thinking that perhaps we should galvanize more efforts into, political party watching, if you permit the use of that word. Is that something you've reflected about at any point in time? It is.
But listen, it's a lot of work, and you see political parties are not open to having an open door conversation where you can.
Hello,
good morning, sir.
Good morning. Can we meet you?
Sorry, you are on to Comrade Abdullah Mohammed, aka Aluta Optimist. I'm calling for the local government area council of Niger State.
Thank you for calling us.
On this issue of electoral reform, my observation is this. The Mr. President is not in town, and the Vice President is not equally in town. And then who do they hand over the country to? Because I could vividly recall when President Muhammad Buhari was on power, he traveled, his Vice President traveled, the members of the National Assembly wanted to move an impeachment motion and declare the office of the President and the office of the Vice President vacant. So, what system of government are we practicing in Nigeria? Have been saying this. Are we practicing democracy in dictatorship or what? It is quite unfortunate. It is quite unfortunate. We have been appreciating the effort of Mr. President Ahmed Bola Tinubu. So it should, as a matter of urgent public importance, ensure that after his administration, let people talk good of him, and we hope that by the special grace of God, our hope that Nigeria had on him will not go in vain. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for your call. Please continue to call in. It's 09. They call, the number to call is where is my call now? Where did I drop that? You can call us on have I dropped this? Okay, you can call us on 091 50910482 091 50910483. Thank you for calling from Bida. Bida will get a prize from me at some point in this program. They have continued to call in and listen in. Yeah, you were.
So you see, political party reform, my own idea, because you see, I've joined not NDI, IRI, in engaging with political party in my previous life, and a lot of times they don't want to engage with civil society. In short, political party have their own arm of civil society.
Yeah.
Or the people they feel comfortable to engage because they know that they would not hold them to account, and they won't have difficult conversations with them. And my own idea is, listen, well, imagine if today 30 million young people wake up and say, you know what, we're just going to join this political party and become card-carrying members. And this is the ideology we're bringing in. Be it the ruling or the major opposition party. They will reform, they will change things, they will shake things up. Because in politics, number actually matters. So imagine 30, 40 million young people going to a political party.
Malema did that in South Africa with the ANC. He disrupted the ANC for a while, and before he went to create the EFF.
Exactly. So maybe that's what would bring the kind of rapid reform. But if we say have civil society go and have a
I can't have you in the room and not get you to talk about this part of the debate that is going on. The diaspora voting, diaspora. I was reading today that the diaspora inflow is about $600 million as of today. Do you think that diaspora voting is something we should be thinking about? Secondly, voting, same day voting. There are people who want us to have elections, all elections in one day. In fact, there are already bills in the National Assembly that is in the works to get that going. What do you think about that?
So for diaspora voting, the amount of investment and contribution, I think they should have a seat at the table. And when I say seat, they should have an opportunity to vote. You see, in America, they've started early voting already. And which is what we're calling diaspora voting. Or what some of us are even saying that, we as election observers, we don't even have time to go and vote. Or security agents and frontline workers during elections. So maybe, I think they should vote. And we have an early voting system where we have a process where the votes and ballots can count and no one can...
You travel a lot.
Yes, and I'll go to the American election.
You travel a lot. Who will likely be there also. Mm. Now, the undocumented Nigerians...
Well,
Sudan already...
they are undocumented in that country, but if they have their NIM number, and they can verify that they are Nigerians, even if they are undocumented anywhere they are.
So how are they going to vote? How would that, in terms of electoral integrity?
They can go into any embassy. Nigeria has...
No, if they are undocumented, they cannot go to embassy.
They can still go, because our embassy will not arrest them.
No, but then they have to have some status to be able to do that in that country. No, I'm just saying I agree, the mechanics of it is huge. The logistical challenge. You've talked about diaspora, so let's talk about early voting
So now, even look at off-season election. We're still dealing with logistical challenge, and then you want us to vote for president, governors, state assembly, House of Reps.
Yes, Senate. We can quickly take your call. Who is on the line, please? Hello. Good morning.
I don't think it's practical. I don't think it's feasible. I think it's going to cause a disaster if I don't think Nigeria is there yet, and that's my own personal opinion. To vote on a single day, I don't think we're there yet. We've seen what happened even in Edo about logistics. This is an off-cycle election, so I don't think we're there yet.
So, as we get to the homestead in our conversation, and I do appreciate the frankness with which you have engaged some of the issues that we have discussed, what are the key reforms you believe needs to be prioritized in Nigeria's electoral system to truly ensure accountability and transparency?
I think first is to fully integrate technology. Yes, we have Beavers, we have iRev, but we must have a 360 platform where we need to do away with this collation of results. Let's have results from polling units straight up to INEC's portal. Collated automatically.
Because
yes.
That's the point. That point needs to be made,
yes,
that it is collation.
Yes, the manual collation is leaving a loophole for manipulation, and we need to take that away because that's the biggest elephant within our electoral system. Let's integrate technology, and let's also understand, as much as we're giving INEC powers to come up with what they call guidelines, does the guideline supersede the Electoral Act? And I see this guideline in most cases, and when you follow the court proceedings, it has caused a lot of bottleneck. Let's have the act or the provision clearly stated, whereby you don't even need a guideline, or even if you have a guideline, it's clearly stated that as much as there's a guideline, the act itself or the provision of the act supersedes whatever guideline, because we've seen that cause a lot of confusion. I also think that how the chairman of INEC emerge must be interrogated, and how the
national commissioners
and the resident electoral officers, how they emerge, must be interrogated. And a lot of people have cited the waste report.
No, it can't. Waste report needs to be contemporized. Hamza, I'm going to have to stop you there. And very, very special thanks to our guest, Hamzat Lawal, founder, chief executive Code, for joining us on the program today. To our dear listener, thank you for joining us on this edition of the Electoral Reform Hour, brought to you by Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa with support from MacArthur Foundation. Our engineers today on duty are Leonard Silvanos and Anyanwu Jonadais. ICT personnel are Egurefa Bola and Angulu James. Studio manager is Rosemary Ngu, and producers are Ando Oin and Joy Ubi. The supervisor is Husseina Akila MNI, and facilitating crew Grace Abu and Jerry Mpube. We apologize for those whose calls who are trying to get in and could not, and the questions we could not take, but the conversation continues next week, Thursday, same time, same station. My name is Ezenwanwago, your anchor, saying thank you for joining us, and see you on Thursday.